excuse me. I just burped a little bit.
I had to burp too. And I was like, I better not burp while we're doing our silence because Rosalie will hurt me.
Yeah, that's definitely my MO is I hurt people.
You're such a, little S&M lady.
That's not me.
That's not you at all. I know.
Okay.
Welcome to Shit My Soul Says, a podcast about all things woo. I'm Jillian.
And I'm Rosalie, and we are obsessed with anything having to do with alternative spirituality.
And we want to share our obsession with you, because woo is fun, but it's more fun with friends. I'm a reincarnation coach and energy worker.
And I'm a practicing witch, so we've been around the woo block a time or two.
Mm-hmm. Each episode, we will be digging into a different topic, from tarot to third eyes to energy healing.
We'll share our personal experiences and offer you practical advice for your own practice.
So whether you're new to all of this or queen of the pagans,
that's me.
Everybody is welcome.
No witch card needed. This is inclusive woo. We just want to laugh with you, learn with you,
and talk about some woo shit with you. So let's do that. Let's talk about Shit My Soul Says.
So, weekly woo?
Let's weekly woo it.
Woo, 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 weekly woo.
Do you want to say what the weekly woo is this time, Rosalie?
Oh, sure. I mean, I feel like you have it nailed, like you've got it down pat, but I'll go ahead and give it a shot. So the weekly woo is the time at the beginning of every episode where Jillian and I talk about something that has happened in the past week that is woo and just helps you to understand just how bonkers the two of us are.
I like that.
All right. What was your weekly woo?
Yeah, so mine really does kind of highlight how bonkers I am too. So that was right on. So I can feel my chakras. I don't know if you can.
Can you explain what you mean by feel?
I know you were going to ask that, and I was even thinking about, like, how do I describe it? Do I describe it as like a tingle? I don't know. The only thing I could say, it feels like energy, which doesn't describe it to people who don't know what energy feels like, but it feels like energy.
Do you feel it all the time?
No, I have to focus in on it. Yeah.
I mean, do I feel, I don't know. I think that sometimes I feel them and sometimes I don't if I'm doing like a chakra cleansing meditation or, I'm focusing on a chakra. But sometimes I feel like that tingle, that energy, power, woo. And sometimes I feel nothing.
Yeah. Well, it took me a little while and I could feel some of them, like my throat chakra.
Oh, big surprise.
No surprise. Exactly. I think that was probably the first one that I felt. I was like, ooh, I can feel it right now, actually, working away. Yeah. And eventually I was able to feel all of them. But sometimes they wake me up in the middle of the night.
Rude.
Yes, they do. Particularly like my first, second chakra, which are the ones that I have issues with. Those are the ones that are kind of cruded up that need extra attention. And so I wake up and I'm like, oh, my second chakra is not feeling good. And so then I try to work it. And I've tried lots of different things. Like I've tried pushing energy in. I've tried poking at it. I tried to do all these different things. And like my approach continues to like evolve. Well, this week I was woken up again. And this time I like just became the chakra more, became the feeling, the discomfort I was feeling, and like was like, I am God. That was also because I wanted to like feel powerful in what I was doing. And because we're all God or goddess or whatever in my belief, you know how that goes. And anyway, but it was working like all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, it took a little bit of time, but my chakras just like totally opened and expanded and just felt healthy and good, which it was
awesome.
Great. And so as I woke up the next day, like I had some back pain because like when I play around with my chakras, it gives me sometimes like the moving of things, I think makes me a little sore. But I could feel my hips felt different, how I was moving my hips. The placement of my hips felt different. And so I've continued to kind of focus on that and try to keep that going because I tighten up usually down there in that chakra. And so the second chakra. But the interesting thing is like I feel more feminine.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
And I know a lot of times energy healers or psychics or readers or whoever will tell me that I am out of balance in my masculine and feminine energy, that I need to be drawing in more feminine energy to be more balanced.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was just interesting because they're like, oh, I think I'm getting it going. They're going to be so proud of me. So yeah, that was definitely a weekly woo, because that's just like not something that happens to everybody.
No, my chakras have never woken me up unless like having to pee is like the one of the chakras being like, hey, you should pay attention to me, and I'm like, oh, I'll just pee.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a pretty sad little reaction to your chakra.
Well, my I think that like Dionysus has like entered you.
Yeah, I think he has. Hello. This is what happens when you open your second chakra. It's the sex chakra. Anyway, that's my weekly woo. What about you, Rosalie?
Woo!
What did you do this week or get up to that was showing how bonkers you are?
What's a little bit frustrating is that the thing that I most want to talk about for my weekly woo is actually what we're going to be talking about for our episode today. So that it was so intense for me. So we'll get into that. But I came up with another weekly woo because I do a lot of shit.
Yes.
I think my weekly woo is just I joined a Facebook group for witches.
Nice.
And it's so interesting because I don't think of myself as like, oh, I'm the person who has to say everything. But at the same time, it's like there's so many baby witches in that group that, they're asking questions that it's like, oh, man, this is what I consider to be really basic. But of course, I've been practicing for over 20 years. Anyway, it's kind of fun to realize that I'm kind of entering that crone phase of my life. And I'm like, yes, bring on the crone, which is great. My 40th birthday is coming up in a couple weeks. I mean, I know everybody reaches the crone phase of their life at different times, but I'm just like, bring on the crone. I don't need that mother energy anymore. I need that crone crankiness, the giving of zero fucks. But also the like, okay, I have this wisdom, I have this knowledge and this experience that I'd like to share with those who are in more of the earlier phases. So that's my weekly woo.
I'm really excited that you are going to be somebody that is going to be more welcoming and helpful to people, even in your zero fucks given mode.
Well, when I was in college and when I was definitely a baby witch, I was working with, it wasn't an official coven, it was our pagan student group, and, it was a bunch of baby witches. Yeah, we really wanted to find somebody who was able to mentor us, who was like someone with experience, who knew what they were doing, who had dealt with some of the shit that was coming up and that we were dealing with, that, and some of it got scary, right? And it was just us, and we just had us, and so we did a lot of trial by fire. But obviously, I'm still here today, so clearly it went okay.
Yes, and now you get to be that person for somebody else.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast.
Yes, and here we are.
Yay. Okay.
Topic time.
Topic. Because our topic is not being crones.
No, it's not witchcraft.
So, Jillian, tell us all about what we're going to be talking about.
Today, we are going to be talking about past life regressions.
What is a past life regression?
A past life regression is a meditation or hypnotic regression that you go through either on your own or with the help of a hopefully trained professional that guides you through to accessing your past lives, which also brings on the topic that we need to touch upon in our episode, which is reincarnation, because it's connected to reincarnation. What is reincarnation, Rosalie?
Reincarnation is simply the notion, the idea that souls persist beyond the current body, the current meat suit that you're in, and you are born and reborn time and time again. And Jillian and I have different views on the purpose of reincarnation and how it all goes. So we won't spend too much time talking about that today, I don't think.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe we'll talk about it. But it's not the main idea.
But yeah, so just the idea that the soul persists and that you're incarnated into multiple bodies throughout your soul's existence.
Exactly. That it is not just this one life to live.
That's right.
You get to do it all over again. And you do a past life regression to figure out what the hell you were up to in the past.
So Jillian and I decided that we would do a past life regression meditation, that we would each do it on our own. We'd find a YouTube meditation that was available for free, and we will link to that in our show notes. And that we would both do the regression on our own in our own time, but with a focus on let's identify lifetimes that we've had together.
And we are so excited to tell it because we didn't talk about it ahead of time.
No, we didn't talk about it ahead of time. This is just all... It's as new to us as it is to you, and I am so excited to hear Jillian's story and to tell her and all of you my story.
I think you are pretty excited to talk about yours.
Oh, I thought that maybe you could go first, because I think mine is probably more interesting.
It probably is. It probably is.
And that sounds really bitchy, but it's based on the sort of hints that we've given each other. So.
Well, just how excited both of us were about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually had a challenging time with this one. I had a hard time visualizing. But I managed to get through because I keep going. I just kept going. I'm going to take a moment to collect myself here and tell Dionysus to calm the fuck down.
Dionysus, come on over here for a little bit. Give Jillian a skosh of a break. Whoa, hello.
See?
That's a new experience.
He's risky. Yeah. I tell you what, you got to watch out for that guy. See? You see exactly what was happening.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so in this passive regression, first it felt Arthurian. Like it felt like Arthur times. That kind of faded away, but it was kind of interesting that was the beginning of it. I was wearing this long white dress and had blonde hair and was at a stone circle. You and I were at a stone circle. And I got that it was Glastonbury, England. And we were very excited. We were young women. We were like, teenagers. And there was a festival happening that day. And we were getting ready for it. And we were very excited because we were going to be the maidens in the festival. Yes. So it kind of felt like Beltane or something like that. And you were making like wreath garlands for our hair and other decor. And you were showing me how to do it. And we just, we were good friends. And then I went home because, it's this regression's like, go home now. Go to your home. Go in the future. So I'm like, I don't get to hang out here with Rosalie anymore. So I went home and it was a thatched house with white wattle. That's what came to my head was the word wattle, which I'd
wattle and daub.
There you go. I don't know what year it was. I know Glastonbury was like a village at the time. I got kind of 1100, 1150, but that could totally be shit. So I don't really trust that at all. But anyway, my dad was there and he was my dad in that life, which was really nice. Side note, I did tell my dad about this.
Yeah.
And he asked, because I was like, oh yeah, I also had a stepmother and she kind of didn't like me. She kind of resented me because everybody gave me all the attention. And my grandmother, who was my mom in this life, was also there. So I told my dad about that. And he was like, oh, well, was she cute? Your stepmother. I was like, I don't know, Dad. And then he was like, well, did I have a cat? I was just like, I like that's my dad said, because did he have a cat? I was like, yeah, we're going to say that you had a cat. Why not?
Why wouldn't he have a cat?
But we did have a little farm. There were like pigs and there was a mule. And so I didn't like my stepmother, like I said, and I didn't get along. So I would often spend time outdoors with the animals, taking care of them. And it was just like this lovely, simple life. We were very poor. We were all living in this very tiny place. But anyway, so there was that part. Anyway, fast forward. I got married to a man who had a really nice, he was like a wealthy man in the town. He had this really nice house. And I was really excited at first because I was like, oh, I get to live in this nice place with his mother and him. But it turned out like I had to do all of the work. Like I had to clean up the place and do all the cooking. And I'm like, wow, this I thought was going to be this great life. And like, this is not so great. I'm not really feeling this. So I was really resentful. Here's where you come back into play, Rosalie. Yeah, we're going to get back to you. And you're like, where's me? Where am I at?
If it makes you feel any better, you're barely in mine.
All right. Well, I kept coming back to what's going on with Rosalie. All right. Well, anyway, in this life, you had gotten knocked up by a married man. And the townspeople didn't look too well on it. So you ended up going out to like the forest and living in like some hut or some like stone hut or something with your child. And you kind of were making things from the woods and like herbs and stuff like that. And maybe you were making like concoctions. So I would come out every 2 weeks and bring you supplies and hang out with you. And I just loved it because I got to feel like free again and connected to you. And I really was jealous of the life that you got to live where you got to be your own person and do your own thing. Meanwhile, I had to go back and like clean the manor or whatever it was. And I had lots of children and that was fine. Like I loved them, but it just felt like drudgery. The whole life felt like drudgery. And I ended up dying in my 40s, I think from like a wagon wheel running over me or something, and found out that my husband, who I thought we were just kind of in a marriage of convenience, really did love me because he cried. And I was like, oh, he loves me. I don't think I loved him, but you know, whatever. Anyway, so the lesson in all of that was just that this idea of that I had this idea of what a conventional life looked like and what I wanted to have. And when I had it, I found out that actually wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. And actually having a life that was off of the beaten track and a little different and unique was actually something that I wanted more. And the message I got was kind of like after that life, that's when I started doing lives that I was doing things that were a little bit more unusual and unique because that kind of you ignited that in me. So that's actually what I was thinking about ahead of time, is that we had talked about that before, that one of my feelings is that you helped me get me back on my spiritual path. And like, I could kind of see it from that life. Like you were sort of that getting me in touch with something that was kind of more occult or more beyond the norm.
Right.
Oh, and the interesting thing, I did a little research because I was like doing research after my regressions. And it turns out that Glastonbury is where they think King Arthur was buried.
Yeah.
I did not know that. And so I thought that was interesting because at the very beginning of it was like this Arthurian times thing.
Right.
Not that Arthur played a part in it at all, but I don't know. It could totally be total bullshit. I'm okay with that.
Right.
But, you know, it was a journey. I took a journey in my mind.
Ooh.
Yeah. Sorry, what?
You know, what's interesting is I think about, you know, sometimes I've done this exercise where it's like, okay, well, if you could live any life, like if you could be anything you wanted and if you could have just anything at all, what are the lives that feel like they'd be interesting or exciting to you? And definitely like living on the outskirts of town and like a little stone hut, doing herbalism and being that person where people are like, oh, I'm going to go see her when I have the stuff that's on the down low. And that's definitely something where I'm like, yeah, I feel like that would be really my jam. I would really like that.
Well, apparently you must have, because that's what you did.
Yeah. And I've also had a lot of lifetimes where I've had sex with married men. So.
Well, for me, the trend was more about this idea of having to work for other people and not wanting to. That's something that I think has come up over and over and over again, like from forced labor to this sort of like low level sort of labor, whatever, wife in times when women didn't have, you know, freedoms, that sort of thing. And so it's like I have a lot of resentment even to this day, and it creeps into my jobs. And it's just like, oh, I got to heal this because this doesn't work now. So yeah, I need to get over that shit.
Well, and this is something I think is kind of important to talk about, even though we didn't say it up front, which is that when you do a past life regression, part of the reason to do that is to look at the things that happened in those previous lives and figure out how that pertains to your life
Yes.
now. What are the things that you missed in that lifetime that are manifesting today because you haven't dealt with the shit from that
Yes.
lifetime?
Exactly. Past life regression can be extremely healing. And when you read a lot of the books, like Brian Weiss, Dr. Brian Weiss has a lot of books on past life regression and stories, and you find people will go through healing, not just emotional healing, though there is definitely emotional psychological healing, but they also go through physical healing as well. Sometimes pretty extreme in extreme ways, that there's something going on that you're still holding on to and that's causing a physical issue in your life. Or maybe it was like the way that you died, like maybe where you got stabbed in a past life, you now have like an ulcer or back pain or something along those lines.
So hold on to that thought.
Okay. I have one more thing to say though, okay, I hold on to that thought and share one little more. The other thing too about it is that people still experienced healing even if they didn't believe in the past life regression, even if they didn't believe in reincarnation. So there's still something powerful in it. If it's real, if it's not real, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I still think it's worthwhile to do because I think that there's a gift to be had in it. So I want to hear your gift, Rosalie. What gift did you get?
Well, it's hard to say for sure what the gift was, but I'll tell you about my regression.
All right, fair enough.
I had no trouble visualizing this regression. It was intense. It might be the most intense visualization that I've ever experienced in my entire life. And that's saying something because I usually visualize things pretty clearly.
You must have taken my energy. Oh, you know what it was? It was the blue guy.
That's right.
Oh, wow. Done.
It all comes back.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, in the Spirit Guide episode, Rosalie asked about a blue guy who showed up and polished her diamond in her head. So there you go. Go listen to that episode. That's that. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Okay. When I got into the past life, I was a man, which that's the first time I've ever had any sort of past life indication of me being male, which was fascinating. And the year that I got was 47 AD.
Okay.
So really, really, really old. Not the most ancient imaginable, but still 2,000 years ago. And it was in Eastern Africa, and it felt like maybe Kenya, Tanzania, sort of the savannah-ish kind of area. And like the ground was red. And I was a member of a semi-nomadic tribe, and herding was a big thing that we did. And you were my wife.
Okay. I'm wife number 2. This is the second wife regression here.
That's right. Interesting.
Because I'm often a male. So there you go.
Yeah. You were my wife, and I thought you were great.
Thank you.
I just thought you were super great. And we had 2 children. There was a boy who was a little bit older, and that was definitely my son, who is currently my son.
Okay.
And a little girl who I think was one of my best friends that I've had many, many past lives together with. There wasn't really much going on. It was just like I could see the rain coming, like there was a big storm cloud coming over, and I was so relieved because it meant that we weren't going to starve. And I looked over at you and I realized that you had like a little bump, like because you were pregnant again.
Oh, me.
And I was terrified for you because you'd had some difficult pregnancies and I was really worried about your life.
Oh, thank you.
But you're welcome. I was in love with another man. So I was not in love with you. I was just head over heels for this warrior. And I wasn't a warrior. I was a herdsman. This warrior, he wouldn't even talk to me. Like I was just so beneath him. But I just was head over heels in love with him. But nothing ever came of it. Yeah, it was peaceful, but, it also felt like we were on the edge. We were constantly on the edge because the storm clouds and the pregnancies were all like, oh, good thing, bad thing.
Death was everywhere.
Yeah, like life was so precious and so difficult to maintain. And then this past life regression, the person doing the recording said to go forward in time a few years, and so I did. And you were no longer part of
Oh,
my
I must have
regression.
died in the pregnancy.
I kind of think that you
Yeah.
did. But in the next stage, I was probably in like my late 40s, and I was with my son who was a teenager. And we were just the two of us camping, and it felt like maybe it was a rite of passage for my son.
Hmm.
And then in the morning, we looked over this rise and we saw they're a band of warriors,
Okay.
right? The next thing I know, a spear was in my son's
Oh,
shoulder.
no.
And I was like cradling him as he was dying. And then I started to feel nauseous, like me, Rosalie, in my bedroom where I was doing the meditation. I started to feel extraordinarily nauseous. Man, and like lightheaded. I started to feel a little woozy. And then in the regression, I looked down and I had a big spear through my gut.
Oh.
And so I was dying in this meditation. And I died. Like, I experienced the death of this past life. And it was not fun.
No. It does not sound like fun.
No.
I just remember when you were pregnant with your son.
Oh my gosh, I was nauseous.
The entire time you had stomach problems.
Yes.
Oh, I got chills. It was like I've had a lot of friends that have been pregnant, but like no one that I've known has had stomach problems during their pregnancy like you did. You were miserable.
It was a nightmare.
You were like living on Tums.
Oh, way harder meds.
Yeah,
than
well, plus. But when I hung out with you, you were only downing the Tums every 10 minutes. But it's just kind of interesting. If he was your son, if it wasn't triggering some of that fear of you losing him or something.
Yeah,
it
certainly could be. So here's where I think it gets really interesting. I got to the place in between lives. So that there's like a space like after you die and before you're reborn, there's sort of a liminal space. And my cat, who is my familiar, which means a lot of different things, but in this case, it just means that she likes to participate in my magic. So she came up to me and tapped on my arm until I like kind of jostled out of the meditation a little bit. And I very much got the sensation that like I was not supposed to find out what happened after the death of that lifetime. And then I sort of I just kind of went back in a little bit, and the meditation said like go forward in time again. And so it was like, oh, now I'm in a different life.
Okay.
Like I just got jumped into a different life, and I was in London.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what time period it was, but it was old. It was very, very, very old. But then my cat put her paw on my phone that I was listening to the meditation on, and she stopped the meditation before it could finish, because it was like, you're not supposed to do more than what you've already done. Like, stop it.
Take what you just did in.
Right. Like, stop. You need to figure out what was going on. But it was just so interesting that my cat has never done anything like that before.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a really intense experience.
Yes, it sounds like it. Well, what do you take away from that life too?
That's the thing, is I'm not sure yet. I'm really not sure, because I think that the stomach thing, there's some unresolved stuff going on with that, and the fact that my son was born again as my son. I'm sure that that's meaningful in some way, but I have had zero desire to even like think about that regression on a deeper level. So I do need to like stop, and I need to meditate on the meditation.
Yeah. Well, I will say that one of the things that you had said that kind of came through as a strong theme of that life is this idea of that life and death is everywhere, or the preciousness of life, or something along that line. And I don't know how that applies to your life situation now.
Well, I don't either just yet. Part of it, what I think is really interesting, is that it was like, oh, okay, this is a lifetime that you had with Jillian, and maybe it was our first lifetime together. I don't know. Maybe that was like the significance of it. But it was like, I have to have a lifetime where I was with Jillian. And even though you didn't play a huge role in my meditation, it was like, oh, there's Jillian, and I think she's great.
So that's our, is there anything else we want to talk about as far as our shared
I mean, I think it's just important to reiterate that we don't know if those were real. We don't have any way to verify that we existed, thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. But it doesn't matter if it's real or not. It matters if we take the lessons that we've learned from those regressions and apply it to our lives today.
Exactly. I mean, it could very well be that our subconscious or our psyche is creating these metaphorical stories for us to learn something, right? Because the subconscious speaks through symbols. That said, I have read a lot about past life regression and also just past life memories as well. And there's some crazy shit. There are people that, there was one story, this is another Brian Weiss one, where he was regressing a woman who was Chinese and she had a translator there to translate from Chinese to English. And she went to a life where she spoke English and she started speaking in English and the translator turned to him and started translating it into Chinese. And he was like, I don't need that. And he's had others where people speak in other languages that they do not know.
That's fascinating.
I know.
Well, and what I thought was really interesting in my regression is that when I spoke to other people, I wasn't speaking in English. I don't know what language I was speaking in, but I understood, like, the words coming out of my mouth. I understood them, even though they weren't any language that I have any experience with at all. But of course, I wasn't talking out loud to anybody who could hear me, who spoke the language. So again, that may mean something or it may not.
It's fascinating. I think, and I know this isn't past life regression, but there's a lot of stuff out there around children and them having memories of past lives. And that stuff is crazy.
Oh my gosh, it is so hard for me not to feed that to my son.
I know.
So that he'll start giving me information.
Oh, this is why it's good I don't have children, because I would just be like, tell me again. Tell me again when you were the mommy and I was the little girl. Tell me that story. I'd totally give my children complexes, no doubt. But yeah, I know there's one story. I can't remember the name of the book, but I'll find out and we'll put it in the episode notes. But it's a story about a little boy raised by two parents, weren't into woo-woo shit. And he was remembering a past life where he was a World War II fighter pilot. Have you heard this story? It's a pretty well-known one.
I have.
Yeah, it's been in a lot of documentaries and all that. Well, they found out who he was. And they actually got him connected to his sister who was still living, this old woman. And the two of them have had conversations and like, oh yeah, remember so-and-so, da-da-da. It, like, he totally remembered all of these people. It had all of these different memories.
That is amazing.
Yes, it's faded now. In the last show I saw, he grew up and, he can't remember all of it. He's got some snippets of it, but he's not going to become a pilot in this life. That's one thing, because he died last time that way. Yeah. Lots of good stuff out there.
I think it might be interesting. I picked the past life regression. It was a very, very short vetting process where I went on YouTube and put in past life regression. And the first link that I found wasn't appropriate because it was like, you're going to remember this after you wake up. And it was like, well, I don't want to go to sleep. I want to, be able to write it down immediately afterwards. Yeah. And then the second one that I found was the one that I said, hey, this is the one we're going to do.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I wish, because I was having issues with visualization, is that she wasn't giving prompts that your visualization would become clearer and clearer. Clearly, you didn't need it. But that's what I'll do when I do my own, is like I'll give myself cues that my visualization is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. But that said, if you're also having problems with visualization, when you're doing it on your own, sometimes you can't go deep enough if you can't relax enough. There are people out there who, that's what they do. They're hypnosis practitioners. They're hypnotherapists. And they do past life regressions. And they have different tricks that they can use to help you get deeper if you're struggling. Or, some people are very easy to hypnotize and some people just aren't because you have very active brains. Not that the people who are easy to hypnotize don't have active brains. I'm just saying that, some people think too much.
It's more of an active left brain rather than an active right brain, I think is what you're trying to say.
Let me see who else I can offend.
If you can be easily hypnotized, your brain doesn't work, is what Jillian is saying.
That's what I'm saying. Hang up your hat. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I said that. So we've talked about past life regression, and it's kind of interesting. And there are people that specialize, as we said, hypnotherapists. There is also something called a between lives regression. And the people that do that are very specialized. They have to go through a lot more training to be able to do that. I've never experienced it, but I would like to. But they're pretty intense sessions. And it sounds like your cat pulled you out of yours. It's just like, you can't do this shit on your own. You need help. But the idea is that in a between lives regression, you get to experience what life is like on the other side, whatever you want to call it, and also get to have the experience of what it is like reviewing your current life, but also planning for your next one. So that's something to check out as well. Michael Newton. I'd like to say Brian Weiss is your gateway drug to reincarnation, right? He's got some really good books out there that are easy to read. If you're new to reincarnation, Many Lives, Many Masters is a great place to start. Easy to read. When you're ready to get into it, checking out the books by Michael Newton, I think is great. He, as a hypnotherapist, and he's gone through and done a lot of these past life regressions and between life regressions, and he's collected all of this information to see what's the common themes between everybody that he's hearing, and he's put it into books. And it's fascinating.
Oh, cool.
It's really fascinating. But it's a bit more intense. Like,
sure.
if you just want to know if you were like, a pop star in your past life, maybe you're not ready for the between lives yet. But if you're really wanting to know why your life is the way it is, that might be a good book to check out.
That kind of brings up a question that we covered. So we have like our secret reincarnation episode that we decided not to publish.
Yeah. It's our secret one. It's like our secret garden of reincarnation.
But in that, we kind of talked about the types of lives that people lived. And I think it's important to talk about a little bit when we're talking about past life regressions, like as you're uncovering who you have been. It's so important to bear in mind that odds are you were not a king or a queen or a rock star. You were probably not Freddie Mercury or, you know?
I mean, somebody is.
Obviously, somebody was, right? But there are a lot of humans and a lot of souls. Jillian is breaking things.
Sorry. My dad's calling me, and I try to hang up on him, and then I answered it, and then I just hung up on him. And in the meantime, I dropped the phone on the ground. He just still wants to know if he's got a cat in his past life. That's all he wants. That's all he wants. He has simple pleasures, simple tastes, simple needs.
So anyway,
sorry. Back to the topic.
Yep. No, that's fine. But what I was saying is, there are a lot of souls, and there have only been so many leaders.
Yes.
There have only been so many kings and queens and famous people. So don't feel like there was something wrong with you if you were a sex worker in a past life, or if you were, a farmer, or just a wife who had to clean the house of her husband's family, or a herdsman. Think about how many people are currently famous and leaders now today, and think about yourself. And where do you fit in that scale?
Unless you're a famous leader, and then good on you. Thanks for listening.
Right, and good on you. Thanks for listening, and please tweet about us.
Yes, thank you. But it's true. The thing is that every life has value. I think in the West, particularly, we put a lot of value on our jobs and on our roles. And sometimes it can feel like, I just have a whole drum job. I'm not living my purpose. Well, your purpose isn't necessarily an occupation. Your purpose may be about a relationship between you and your son, right? It may be about helping people through charitable works. I mean, it can be a lot of different things. And that's the interesting about going back into these lives, is to kind of figure out what were the jewels that you had in these past lives.
So yeah, just definitely don't feel like a failure or like you've done something bad, or you were a bad person, and that's why you are where you are, or why you were where you were. we all experience lives that are good and we
Yeah.
all experience lives that are bad in the sense of just really hard and harsh and unpleasant. And we've all experienced just the worst of the worst and the best of the best in our various past
And
lives.
you know what? And here's the thing, too, is that it's nice to think that we've always been wonderful people. But the truth is that we experience hardships, we learn and we grow from them. And when we look back at our previous lives, we might not be very proud of the people that we were. I know I had a past life that I think I was an Egyptian slave driver, and I was a pretty bad dude. And when I tapped into that life, I felt like a lot of shame and horror and sadness. But it doesn't mean that's who you are now. The idea is that you had that life, you had that experience so that you could now be the person who learned not to be that person and gets to be the person that you are now. Do we want to say any more about it? I'm ready to blow your mind with something new.
Great. Blow my mind with something new.
So as I keep on referencing Brian Weiss, in one of his latest books, he's talking about how he's doing future life regression with people. And
what?
Yes. And he even's like, I don't know, this could totally be them making it up in their heads, but it still helps them. And what will happen too in all of these, it'll be like, okay, well, this is what their lesson is right now. And then here are 3 different potential lifetimes depending on what they do with this one. And the thing that's interesting to me that I've really liked, because I've read several of these, people keep on talking about certain things. So I'm like, I'm getting clues about the future. So there's the population goes down. There are parts of the earth that are uninhabitable because it's too hot. That kind of thing that's not so happy. But the thing that I think is interesting in several of them, energy healing becomes a much bigger deal in the future. It actually gets integrated with traditional medicine. And one of the things that several of them reference is a rod, that there's some sort of a crystal rod that they use. I've seen this in a few different things. Like there's some crystal rod that's going to be used in the future with energy healing. I don't know what that is, but I'm like, well, that's interesting. Particularly interesting, one of the guys who said this was a doctor who did not believe in any of this reincarnation bullshit.
Right.
And he was talking about being teaching energy healing to people in the future. And it's just like, he's like, that's not what I'm into. But in his future regression, he was.
That is fascinating.
I've never tried it. I've never done a future life regression.
It's interesting when you talked about that, like that there were different possibilities of lifetimes based on like how this one goes. It made me think of the tarot and kind of just divination in general, right? Where when you ask a question about the future or when you ask about like what you should be focusing on to get the path you want, your actions today have an effect. And so the cards might give you different answers based on what's going to happen next. And Jillian in our tarot episode talked about a layout that she created where she has like a few different options of like what the future could hold based on your current actions. And so I think that's really interesting to think about that, but not just my future in this lifetime, but taking that a step further and going into the next lifetime.
Because sometimes I think about that. And sometimes I'm like, well, I am not getting this lesson in this lifetime. I'm going to have to deal with this one next one. If there's been a few people that I'm like, yeah, we are not getting this figured out in this lifetime. I'm going to see you again. We got some shit to work out. See you next time. Because I'm done with you in this lifetime.
Oh, and that brings me to another thing. Which is the people that we travel through our lives with, which again, it's tricky because we had this previous episode that we decided just wasn't high enough quality. Like the sound quality was just not there.
Yeah, we're going to give that one to our Patreons though. If you become a patron, you can listen to it.
And it will have content that we don't cover in this episode. Both of us believe that there are people or souls that we are connected with in some way, and we travel from life to life together because we like each other so much.
You're part of your group. It's your family. It's your peeps.
And so just any thoughts about soulmates or soul enemies?
Oh, soul enemies actually are also your peeps. That's the thing that, you that's the crazy thing. Well, I mean, it's a little bit mixed. on the one hand, there can be like somebody who murdered you could be your husband. That's great. I mean, like in the past life, they murdered you, and now that you love each other. Because sometimes, you know, you grow and you change, and you give somebody a second chance, I guess, after they killed you. But sometimes, too, in one of them, I've read, like, the guy's like, oh, yeah, oh, Mary and John are going to be my parents again. Oh, God, they're really hard parents, you know? And it's just like, oh, yeah, well, they know each other. They travel together. And sometimes those difficult relationships continue on. But, you know, eventually you heal those differences and become pretty close because you got shared history.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're doomed to see them over and over and over again.
That's why you want to get your shit figured out. You just want to get your shit figured out. That's probably what we should call this episode. Get your shit figured out.
Absolutely.
Yes. Do we want to handle some of our listener questions?
I think we do.
Okay. I'll read the first one. For someone who struggles to visualize, like, I cannot for the life of me get to a point where I'm imagining myself walking down a staircase, opening a door, and walking out into a past life experience, what do you suggest? How to build the visualization while meditating muscle?
I mean, that's a difficult question for me to answer because I have never had any trouble with visualization.
Yeah. It's like me trying to give sleep advice to somebody who's an insomniac. It's like, yeah, I have no problem sleeping.
You know, I'm the sort of person where it's like, oh, Zen meditation where you're supposed to clear all the thoughts out of your head and just have like, you know, where you're not focused on anything, where it's just nothing. I'm like, no. That does not work for me because I start to visualize things. So it's difficult for me to give really good advice, but I would say start with something that's in front of you and something that's very familiar. So like an orange, for instance, where you know what it looks like, you know what it feels like, you know what it smells like and tastes like, and what it sounds like when you peel it or bite into it, right? So you know all the senses of it, and then just close your eyes with an orange there, like maybe you're holding it in your hands, and start to visualize, what does it feel like? Well, you can feel it. So on top of that, you've got this concrete object, and then you use your mind to build the orange.
Yes.
That's a thought.
That is a thought. I like that thought. Use something that you can close your eyes and open them again, look at it, or a room that you really know. I have some other thoughts that have come to me as well from a variety of different angles. One thought, you could ask a spirit guide for help. That's one thing.
Yes.
You could get a little blue guy to come and put a gem in your middle of your head. So you can ask for help. That's one thing. Also, it might be a third eye chakra issue. And so I would say visualize white light going into your third eye chakra, but then you'd slap me across the face because that's exactly your problem. So instead, I would say put your palm of your hand up to your forehead where your third eye chakra is, and then try to kind of like intend or feel or imagine as much as you can, like energy coming out of your hand and into your forehead, or just intend it to try to give yourself some healing in your third eye chakra is also an idea.
You could also do that with a crystal.
Yeah.
You know, I find that certain crystals really kind of help to open up that third eye. I'm thinking like labradorite maybe would be a good one. Moonstone, onyx or obsidian, anything that's like protective and divinatory of some sort. I might have to Google this and make a blog post.
Oh, I like it. That's great.
Third eye crystals.
Yes, third eye crystals. And that would be your spirit guide continuing to work with you. I'm not going to give it up. Your little blue guy.
Thanks, spirit guide.
Yeah, he's in your forehead. And the other thing I would say is it might actually be a great idea to go to a professional hypnotherapist because they're going to have tricks and techniques and tools to help you get there. And then maybe as you get that experience in a professional setting, then you'll be more able to do it on your own. Get help. That's what I am saying.
And also, you know, I've been to a professional hypnotherapist, not for past life regressions, but for dental anxiety. So now you know that that's a thing. She talked to me throughout the process. So when you and I talked back to her, right? So when you have a recording, you can't experience what it's like to be able to have a dialogue back and forth with the hypnotherapist. Where if you're like, I really struggle with this, then they can say, okay, what do you see? And you can start talking about that. And maybe it turns out that you don't actually see pictures with your third eye, right? Maybe you get feelings and you just can't. You're so caught up in, well, I have to see it. I have to visualize it with eyes that are closed. How can I do that? But instead you get feelings and start to understand things on a deeper level. And you don't need the senses the same way that we do to just get through our daily lives.
I like that. I think that's a really good point.
I think that came from my spirit guide because that just popped right into my head.
We got to give this little guy a name. I think it starts with a B. I want to call him like Bobo or something.
Oh, his name is not
I know
Bobo.
It isn't. Bobles. Bo. I don't know.
I'll ask him.
Okay, you ask him. Find out. So Jillian really needs to know. The next question is, why do we reincarnate?
Well, Jillian, why do we reincarnate?
I have my answer. My answer is we reincarnate because we originally came from the source. We got I like to visualize as a little piece that's broken off from the source, and that we are learning, we are consciousness, and we are learning about ourselves in the bigger sense in an individualized way to have a deeper learning and understanding of who we are, we as one entity. And that we grow and evolve, or maybe we not even evolve. Maybe we just become more naturally ourselves and eventually get to return to become one with the source, the universe, the God, the goddess, whatever your thought process is. That's the big high level idea behind it all in my storybook.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know that I have a belief about our origins. I'm not sure about the why, right? I feel for me that there are certain things that are unknowable as humans, or at least for me in this lifetime and where I'm at on my spiritual journey, and that my human mind simply cannot comprehend the truths of the universe. But I think for me, we have every chance to get it right. So, we start from some place where it's difficult and we fuck everything up, and we're going to continue to fuck everything up, right? Like we always fuck shit up.
It's being human.
Right. But there's no hell in my opinion. Like no matter how bad you are in this lifetime, you have every opportunity to get it right. You can get better. You can be a better person. And if you don't have a chance to be that better person in your current lifetime, you've got another shot. And another shot, and another shot. And the idea is to eventually get to a point where you're as good as you can be as a human. And then maybe you go and become an alien, or maybe you become an angel, or maybe you become a spirit guide, or maybe you become one with the source. Like, I don't know what happens at the end. I also don't think that we just get one shot and then boom, either you're nothing, or you're punished for eternity, or you're rewarded for eternity. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I like to think of it, and I actually get this in dreams, that it's like a big video game. That, that you go through and you try to go through all your little levels, and you try to do your little point things and try to accomplish your little missions. And sometimes you die before you win the game, and then you have to start again. But you remember again how to do those things a little bit better, right? And so that as you keep on incarnating, eventually this thing that was really hard for me, boom, 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 I know how to get past this. But now I'm on this level and I got to figure this shit out.
Right. Like that boss is a lot harder.
Exactly. I think that's I like to think about that's how reincarnation is. And one question kind of came to me too, that some of you might be wondering, how do you know when you're about ready to be done with this shit?
Oh yeah. How do you know?
They're actually, I have done some reading and I've actually met people that are pretty advanced souls. They're pretty rare to find. Typically people that are pretty advanced souls, they tend to be a bit more withdrawn from the world, actually. the more you've been around and the more you're ready to move on, it's just kind of you get tired of the human, like you just aren't interested in the human dramas. You're not interested. There's no motive. You've learned that there's really nothing to be had at being at the top of some corporate ladder or having a lot of money. And you tend to kind of be a little bit more, I don't know, I find people that are like that kind of level of a soul tend to be a bit spacier too, but they're also very like kind and compassionate and loving and peaceful.
Yeah. The last question we have here is, what happens when we get to the end of our many lives journey? So not just how are we in this lifetime, but like what happens at the end?
What I understand, I feel like I have to caveat everything, people. Just, I believe things. This is what I believe. Don't be offended by it. Believe whatever you want to believe. But I'll tell you what I think. What I think is that once you're done being a human being, you continue to be a being on the other side. And that's when you might be a spirit guide to help continue to, because there are spirit guides that continue to incarnate in form. And there are some, as you get more evolved, you don't need to go through form anymore. This is really hard. Like being on Earth, it's like hard. And everything that I read is like, you're incarnating on Earth. It's like a really hard school. And we're really like brave, and beings on the other side really are impressed that we're choosing to be in this shit show of a life and these bodies. So yeah, at some point when you're like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, you can stop doing it. And, but you continue to, there's things you can learn and continue to grow and evolve on the other side, and you continue to kind of go upwards in your vibrational levels. Until eventually, in eons from now, you'll rejoin the source, but it's like a long time from now. So that's my story.
I like it. I don't have anything to refute it with because, again, I just don't feel like I have any way of knowing. Yeah. And so my belief is kind of like, well, I mean, my goal is to just get closer to my goddess.
I like that. I think that's what we should all be focused on. And, you know, even on a lot of these books that I've read, like people be like, yeah, I can only see so far. The people that are giving the information, like, I haven't been up that level. I don't know what's up there. I can only talk to you about what I've seen. So,
right.
You know.
Yeah. So in this lifetime, I want to get closer to my goddess. And I feel like that's probably what I'm working on right now, is just getting closer to her.
Hashtag life goals.
Hashtag. But also, it doesn't have to be my goddess that you're trying to get close to.
That's right.
Just to be clear.
Apparently Dionysus wants you to get closer to him, or wants me to get close to him.
Yeah, he's into you right now.
I have my own little baklava. No, that is Greek too. That's I meant bacchanalia.
I guess. I mean, you could have baklava at your bacchanalia.
I think I will. I think I'm gonna do that.
Oh no! But what I was trying to say is that I'm a pluralist, so I think that every religious or spiritual path is the right path for the person following it. So, you know, if for you it's getting closer to Jesus, get closer to Jesus. If for you it's getting closer to science or just the universe in general or the source or
Allah,
all of the gods or Allah, or, you know, it doesn't matter. According to me, it might matter to you, but to me, it doesn't matter what name you put on the thing that is bigger than you. Because I think we can all admit that there is something bigger than we are.
That's right. Even atheists, I think, could at least say the galaxy is bigger than we are.
Right, the universe.
Yeah, pretty massive. I like it.
Okay, is it time for us to do our tarot readings? What did you pull?
I got the 10 of Wands.
Tell me about that
So
card.
that is the card in the Rider-Waite, and I did use the Rider-Waite this time. It's a man with sticks.
They're all men with sticks in that deck.
And he's carrying them. And so what this card means to me, this is about carrying burdens. It's about working really hard and getting, you know, but carrying all these heavy burdens, which is kind of interesting because that's what my past life was about.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it was about carrying heavy burdens. I want to hear what yours is, and then I'll make my interpretation of our blended read.
So I used the Light Seers Tarot, and I pulled the Three of Cups. I don't think you can see that, Jillian.
You're in darkness.
It's an image of three feminine-looking people. Their faces are turned, so you just see the backs of their heads, and these three people are all hugging each other like they're friends. And I'm just going to read the quick words that it says. Friendships, abundance, cooperation, community, closeness with siblings, joy, communication, celebration, and soul contracts.
Nice. Look at that.
And so when I pulled that card, I was like, this is about the people that you travel through your lifetimes with, like the people that are your close peeps. And to me, you're one of those people, Jillian. Like, our lives are deeply intertwined right now. And they have been in different lifetimes, which we've, you know, going back 2,000 years, apparently.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that it's, you know, right now we're all struggling to find community and to be in that close space. And we've got the burden, you know, we're all carrying these heavy, heavy burdens, but our community, you have soul people. Those are the people who are going to help you to carry your burden, even if they're not physically present. So that means stay in touch with people, have Zoom calls or phone calls, or write an old-fashioned letter. I mean, it will probably take about 6 years to get there because the postal service is overwhelmed, but so that's my interpretation of the two cards together.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that. I'm gonna go a little bit further on that as well. This idea of burdens. You know, life is hard. Life is hard. Like, and it's supposed to be hard. Very few come here for a relaxing vacation. There are some. Apparently you get a few break lives every now and again. But we came here for the struggle. We came here for the burden. It's for the again, my belief. You can think I'm full of shit. But I think if you look at your life and you see where you have grown the most and learned the most, it has been as a consequence of struggle and difficulty and challenge.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I've started learning a little bit about Stoicism lately. And because it's interesting because it's like a male version of metaphysical belief. Is kind of interesting. But it very much overlays with my beliefs about reincarnation. And one of the things that I said is that it's that the obstacle or the burden or the challenge is your fuel. It's your fuel for your fire.
I like that.
So when you come across something that's challenging or difficult, instead of trying to avoid it or run away or escape it, ask yourself, how can this be fuel for my fire? Isn't that beautiful? I loved that.
Yes. That is, yeah. How are you going to take the burdens and the shit that this life is throwing at you? And how are you going to use that to transform yourself into someone better?
Yeah. That shit can be fertilizer, right?
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
Grow some fucking flowers. Yes, I like it. I like that. That makes me happy.
I love it.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you immeasurably.
Absolutely. And let us know what you think. Go ahead and send us an email at shitmysoulsays@gmail.com. For example, you know, we just touched upon past life regression with a little dabbling in reincarnation here or there, but maybe you have other questions that we could cover in future episodes.
Or maybe you have a hilarious past life story to share.
Oh, do tell. Please.
Yes.
I love
those.
I scoop them up.
And we're still a new podcast. We're working really hard to keep this going, but what we need from you is to subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends.
And go and check out our website, shitmysoulsayspodcast.com, where you can read our blog posts where we get into things like actually laying out some of the tarot reads or talking about crystals. We dig a little bit deeper into some of our blog posts. So subscribe so that you can get those as well as episodes delivered to your episodes delivered to your
inbox.
email inbox.
And yeah, just tell us What does...
Yeah.
Y'all have no idea because I edited it out, but I can never say this right the first time. So tell us, what shit does your soul say?
What shit does your soul say? Until next time, do your woo.
Do your woo. Bye!